Hello guys, welcome to Black Magic. So in this video, we will see what if the Goblin Nation discovered Harry's parents were murdered and adopted him at age 1 to raise as their heir. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1, The Heir of Two Worlds. Blood Magic. The humans never truly respected it, but goblins understood its power. That's why Senior Account Manager Griphook felt it immediately, a catastrophic breach in the Potter family wards. Director Ragnarok. Griphook burst through the ornate metal doors without knocking. The Potter wards have fallen. The Goblin King looked up from the ancient ledger, his clawed fingers frozen mid-calculation. When? Moments ago. Complete failure. Ragnarok's eyes narrowed. Prepare a security team. We leave immediately. Within minutes, 5 armored goblins disapparated from Gringotts' secured chamber, bypassing their own anti-apparition wards, one of many secrets wizards never suspected goblins possessed. They arrived in Godric's Hollow amid chaos. The Potter cottage stood partially destroyed, magic still crackling through the air like lightning. No ministry officials had arrived yet, typical wizard incompetence. Secure the perimeter, Ragnarok ordered, drawing a silver dagger from his belt. The team moved with practiced precision while Ragnarok and Griphook entered the ruins. James Potter lay sprawled in the hallway, wandless and still. No need to check for life, the family vault magics had already registered his passing. The infant heir lives, Griphook said, following the pulse of inheritance magic upstairs. They found Lily Potter next, collapsed before a crib where a dark-haired child stood clutching the railing, blood trickling from a lightning-shaped wound on his forehead. The child stared at them without fear, green eyes unnervingly calm for one so young. The magical signature here. Ragnarok passed his dagger through the air, reading its residue. Impossible. What is it, Director? Killing curse residue. Everywhere. Yet the child lives. Ragnarok approached the crib. Harry Potter. The last of his line. The boy reached out, tiny fingers grasping at Ragnarok's ornate armor. Director, Griphook warned, we must decide quickly. Wizards will arrive soon. Ragnarok assessed the situation with cold calculation. The Potter accounts were among their most profitable. With both adult Potters dead, the child would be placed with guardians, likely Dumbledore's pawns, who would control the Potter fortune until the boy's majority. Unless the child comes with us, Ragnarok declared. Director, taking a wizard child, is unprecedented, yes. But not forbidden by the treaty. Ragnarok's sharp teeth gleamed. The Potters named no magical guardian in their wills. Under Clause 17 of the Banking Accord, Gringotts may act as temporary financial custodian when account holders die under suspicious circumstances. That clause has never been applied to a child, only to assets. Then we create new precedent tonight. Ragnarok carefully lifted Harry from the crib. The ministry has never recognized goblin adoption rights. That oversight works in our favor now. The boy didn't cry, only grabbed at Ragnarok's long ear with surprising strength. We leave before, Ragnarok stopped as they heard the roar of an engine outside. Hagrid, Griphook spat. Dumbledore's servant. Then Dumbledore already knows. Ragnarok's decision solidified. We take the air now. Alert our legal division to prepare documentation citing the Banking Accord. By the time the ministry untangles the legal implications, the boy will be raised among us. With Harry secured in his arms, Ragnarok nodded to his team. They disappeared just as heavy footsteps pounded up the stairs. The Goblin High Council chamber hadn't seen such commotion in centuries. Outrageous. A wizard child in our sacred halls. Elder Gornik slammed his fist on the stone table. Return him immediately. And surrender a tactical advantage? Ragnarok countered, standing before the semicircle of goblin elders with Harry now sleeping in a hastily constructed crib. The wizards have trampled our rights for centuries. This child is now the keystone to their society. Explain yourself, Director, demanded Bogrod, the oldest council member. The magical residue at the scene confirms it. This child somehow survived the killing curse cast by the dark wizard who calls himself Voldemort. Ragnarok paced before them. Furthermore, the curse rebounded, destroying Voldemort himself. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The wizarding world will hail this boy as a hero, Ragnarok continued. Imagine their savior raised with goblin values, understanding our perspective. When he eventually returns to their society, he becomes our greatest advocate. Or our greatest betrayer, Gornik countered. Wizards cannot be trusted. He's not yet a wizard. He's a child. Ragnarok surprised himself with the protective edge in his voice. A child who witnessed his parents' murder hours ago. The chamber fell silent as Harry stirred in his sleep. I propose we invoke the ancient right of clan adoption, Ragnarok said finally. I will personally claim him for Clan Silverblade. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Clan adoption hadn't been used in over 300 years. You would make a wizard your heir. Bogrod's voice trembled with shock. I would make this wizard my son, Ragnarok corrected. And in doing so, secure both his inheritance and our future influence. The debate raged for hours before the council finally voted. 7-6 in favor. Harry Potter would remain with the goblins. You must eat, young one, Griphook urged, holding out a spoonful of mineral-rich goblin porridge. The 4-year-old Harry frowned, pushing it away. Want Raggy? Director Ragnarok is in important meetings, Griphook explained for the 5th time. And you must call him father, as is proper. Raggy is Raggy, Harry insisted, crossing his arms. 3 years had passed since Harry's adoption into Clan Silverblade, and Griphook still couldn't decide if the arrangement was brilliant or disastrous. Assigned as the boy's caretaker and tutor, he'd watched the child grow comfortable in the underground chambers of the Goblin Nation. Too comfortable, in Griphook's opinion. Fine. No breakfast, no mining lesson, Griphook said, setting down the spoon. Harry's eyes widened. He loved the mining lessons, when he got to use the small pickaxe Ragnarok had commissioned for him. One bite, the boy negotiated, already thinking like a goblin. Full bowl or no pickaxe, Griphook countered. Harry scowled but grabbed the spoon. Griphook suppressed a smile. The boy learned quickly. Later, walking through the teaching mines with Harry skipping ahead, Griphook noticed the boy had started growing again. His head now reached Griphook's shoulder, already taller than most goblin children his age would be. It created problems with the other children, who already resented the wizard in their midst. Remember, Harry, Griphook called as the boy examined a vein of silver, what matters in mining? Patience and perception, Harry recited, running small fingers along the rock face. Gold doesn't rush, and neither should miners. And what do we value above gold? Harry turned, green eyes serious. Honor and binding word. The boy had memorized their teachings perfectly. But did he understand them? The question haunted the Goblin Nation as they raised the wizard child among them. Again. Bark not, the combat master growled, twirling his short blade. 6-year-old Harry pushed himself up from the stone floor, breathing hard. Blood trickled from a small cut on his arm, nothing serious, but his 5th injury today. You're slow, wizard son, Bark not taunted. Your enemies won't wait for you to find your feet. Harry glared at the combat master, anger flashing in his eyes. The other young trainees watched from the edge of the practice ring, most hoping to see the human child fail again. Defend yourself. Bark not lunged forward. This time, Harry didn't try to match the goblin's strength. Instead, he ducked under the swing, rolling past Bark not and snatching up his dropped practice dagger. Before the combat master could turn, Harry had the blunted blade pressed against the back of Barnot's knee. Yield? Harry asked, voice steady despite his ragged breathing. The training room fell silent. No trainee had ever gotten the better of Barknot. The combat master stood frozen for a moment, then let out a bark of laughter. Not bad, wizard son. You finally used your height disadvantage properly. Harry stepped back, confused. My disadvantage? You humans think being tall is strength, Barknot explained, taking his blade back. But being closer to the ground gives us a lower center of gravity. You finally stopped trying to fight like a tall human and fought like a short one instead. Harry nodded slowly, understanding dawning. You'll never be a goblin, Barknot said, not unkindly. But you might become a warrior worthy of your clan name, Silverblade. From that day, Harry stopped trying to emulate the goblin children exactly. Instead, he adapted their techniques to his growing human body, creating a hybrid fighting style that began to earn reluctant respect from his peers. The ministries sent another delegation, Griphook informed Ragnarok. They're third this year. Ragnarok didn't look up from the correspondence he was reviewing. The same demands, I presume. With new threats. They're suggesting banking sanctions if we don't release Harry to their custody. After 7 years, they still don't understand goblin determination. Ragnarok signed the document before him with a flourish. What does our legal team recommend? We continue citing the combined protections of the Banking Accord and the Adoption Treaty of 1612. They're on shaky ground legally. If they push too hard, we can threaten to close their accounts. Ragnarok nodded. And Harry? Growing quickly. His magic manifests strongly now, though differently than wizard children. Goldtooth believes it's being influenced by our magic. Is he happy? The question seemed to surprise them both. Griphook considered carefully. He struggles with belonging. The goblin children still see him as outsider. Yet he knows no other life. Bring him to me this evening, Ragnarok decided. It's time he learned more about his birth parents. When 8-year-old Harry entered Ragnarok's chambers that night, he carried himself with the straight-backed posture of goblin nobility, yet his gangly human limbs betrayed his dual nature. You wish to see me, father? Harry bowed formally. Sit, my son. Ragnarok gestured to the chair across from him. We need to discuss your heritage. Harry's eyes lit up. Am I finally ready for the Silverblade Ancestral Chronicles? Not our family chronicles. Yours. Ragnarok placed a small golden key on the table between them. This opens your birth parents' vault. Harry stared at the key. He'd known he was adopted, his obvious physical differences made that impossible to hide, but the goblins rarely mentioned his human parents. James and Lily Potter, Ragnarok continued. Respected clients of Gringotts. Your father was an Auror, a wizard law enforcer. Your mother, a talented charm specialist. Why did they die? Harry asked, not reaching for the key. They opposed a dark wizard called Voldemort. He killed them, then tried to kill you. Ragnarok touched the lightning scar on Harry's forehead. Instead, his spell rebounded. You lived, he was destroyed. The wizarding world calls you the boy who lived. Harry processed this information with the analytical calm the goblins had instilled in him. Is that why the ministry keeps trying to take me? Partly. You're also wealthy by wizard standards. The Potter vaults hold considerable treasure. Our clan has more, Harry said with goblin pride. Indeed. But wealth isn't the only reason. Ragnarok leaned forward. To wizards, you represent hope. Their savior. And they can't bear that their savior is being raised by creatures they consider beneath them. Harry's eyes hardened. I'm goblin raised. It's who I am. Yes and no. Ragnarok pushed the key closer. You are both, Harry. Denying either part dishonors your complete heritage. Harry finally took the key, turning it over in his fingers. Will I see their vaults? Soon. You should know your wizard inheritance before you must navigate their world. Must I go among them? Real fear flickered across the boy's face. One day, yes. You'll attend their wizard school when you turn 11. Ragnar's voice softened slightly. But you'll always be Clan Silverblade. Nothing can break that bond. That night, for the first time in years, Harry cried himself to sleep, caught between the world that raised him and the world that awaited him. By age 10, Harry had mastered basic goblin magic, metallurgy, warding, and contract-binding spells that wizards didn't consider real magic but that goblins had refined over centuries. His wandless abilities particularly impressed his teachers, unaware that all young wizards could perform uncontrolled wandless magic before being trained to focus through wands. Focus the intent, not just the metal, Silverhand instructed as Harry concentrated on a silver nugget, trying to reshape it through will alone. The metal wobbled, then slowly stretched into a thin wire. Better, the old goblin smith acknowledged. Your magic flows differently than ours, but you're adapting well. Harry relaxed, letting the wire coil into his palm. Will I still be able to do this once I get a wand? Wands limit as much as they focus, Silverhand replied. Remember that. Wizards become dependent on their tools rather than their innate abilities. These lessons continued daily, alongside combat training, financial education, and goblin history. Harry devoured knowledge in all forms, preparing for his inevitable entrance into wizard society with determined focus. His human heritage sometimes emerged in unexpected ways. He grew tall enough that special accommodations had to be made for his sleeping quarters and workstations. His preference for sunlight led Ragnar to commission a special chamber with enchanted windows that mimicked the outdoor sky, something no goblin had ever requested. Yet he remained fiercely loyal to Clan Silverblade and the Goblin Nation. When ministry officials made their quarterly attempts to claim him, Harry now stood beside Ragnar during the meetings, dressed in goblin-crafted armor sized for his growing frame, a visible statement of his allegiance. The boy needs to be with his own kind, Ministry Representative Dolores Umbridge simpered during one such meeting. Surely you can see that's best for everyone. I am with my kind, Harry answered before Ragnar could speak. Clan Silverblade is my family. Such a confused child, Umbridge said with a sickly smile. When you're older, you'll understand. I understand perfectly, Harry interrupted, expression cold. You want the Potter vaults and the political advantage of controlling the boy who lived. Neither is available. Umbridge's face reddened. How dare you speak to a ministry official this way? This just proves the terrible influence. This meeting is concluded, Ragnar declared, placing a protective hand on Harry's shoulder. Send my regards to Minister Fudge. The banking accord remains in effect, as does our custodianship. After the ministry representatives left, Ragnar turned to Harry. You handled yourself well, but remember, when you enter their world, you'll need to guard your tongue more carefully. I won't pretend to respect them when they show no respect to you, Harry said fiercely. Strategy sometimes requires appearing to yield while actually advancing, Ragnar advised. Remember our battle philosophy. Harry nodded reluctantly. The strongest position sometimes looks like the weakest. Precisely. Now, shall we review the Potter investment portfolio? Your wizard inheritance requires attention as well. The letter arrived exactly as Ragnar had predicted it would. Delivered not by regular owl post, which couldn't penetrate Gringotts' defenses, but by a Hogwarts representative who stood nervously in the bank's main lobby, requesting an audience. Professor McGonagall, Griphook greeted the tall witch. Director Ragnar anticipated your visit. I'm pleased someone did, she replied crisply. After 3 years of unanswered correspondence regarding Mr. Potter's situation. Follow me, Griphook said, ignoring her comment. He led her through doors that few wizards had ever passed, down into the administrative levels of Gringotts where Harry and Ragnar waited in a formal meeting chamber. McGonagall stopped abruptly when she entered, her eyes fixed on Harry. The boy sat beside Ragnar, dressed in a formal goblin tunic modified for his human frame. At nearly 11, he was already tall for his age, with his father's untidy black hair and his mother's striking green eyes. "Harry Potter," she breathed. "Harry Silverblade Potter," he corrected politely, rising and bowing as Goblin etiquette demanded. "Welcome, Professor McGonagall." She seemed momentarily speechless, taking in the unusual sight before her, the boy who lived, raised by goblins, displaying none of the wide-eyed wonder she'd expected. "Please, sit," Ragnock gestured to the chair across from them. "I understand you bring Harry's Hogwarts invitation." "Yes." She collected herself, handing the envelope directly to Harry rather than Ragnock, a small but deliberate choice that Harry noted immediately. "Mr. Potter, Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry would be honored to welcome you this September." Harry opened the letter, reading it carefully before passing it to Ragnock. "Thank you for delivering this personally." "I confess I was curious," McGonagall admitted. "We've heard stories about your upbringing." "I imagine you have," Harry replied evenly. "Most likely inaccurate." "Perhaps you could correct my misconceptions then," she suggested, watching him closely. "Director Ragnock of Clan Silverblade adopted me after my parents' murder, raising me according to Goblin traditions while educating me about my human heritage as well." Harry's voice remained neutral, rehearsed. "I've been prepared for eventual attendance at Hogwarts since I was 8. "I see." McGonagall's expression softened slightly. "And have you been happy, Mr. Potter?" The question caught Harry off guard. He'd expected interrogation about his education, his magic, even his living conditions, but not his happiness. "I have family who values me," he answered carefully. "Knowledge, purpose, and honor. Isn't that happiness?" McGonagall exchanged a glance with Ragnock that Harry couldn't quite interpret. "We've prepared Harry thoroughly for integration into Wizarding Society," Ragnock stated, changing the subject. "However, there are practical matters to discuss regarding his attendance." The conversation shifted to logistics, Harry's escorted visits to Diagon Alley for school supplies, banking access during the school year, holiday arrangements. Throughout, McGonagall watched Harry with an increasingly thoughtful expression. As the meeting concluded, she addressed Harry directly again. "Your parents would be proud of your poise, Mr. Potter. I knew them both well at Hogwarts." "You did?" Harry failed to mask his eagerness. "What were they like as students?" McGonagall smiled genuinely for the first time. "Your father was brilliant but mischievous, constantly in trouble yet somehow always charming his way out of serious consequences. Your mother was exceptionally talented, kind-hearted but fiery when provoked." Harry absorbed this information hungrily. Despite Ragnock's occasional stories, first-hand accounts of his parents were rare treasures. "Perhaps we could continue this conversation when you arrive at Hogwarts," McGonagall suggested, rising to leave. "I have many memories I'd be willing to share." "I'd like that," Harry said sincerely. After McGonagall departed, Ragnock studied Harry's face. "You're eager to learn about your birth parents. Wouldn't you be?" Harry asked, then quickly added, "It doesn't diminish my place here. I just want to know." "Understanding one's complete heritage is honorable, not disloyal," Ragnock assured him. "Now, shall we prepare for your first public appearance in Wizarding Society? Diagon Alley awaits, and we must make quite an entrance." The Wizarding shopping district fell into stunned silence as Harry walked down the cobblestone street, flanked by 4 armored goblin guards with Griphook at his side. After 10 years hidden from public view, the boy who lived had emerged, and nothing like what anyone expected. Whispers followed them like ripples. "Is that Harry Potter? With goblins? Look at how he's dressed. They say he's been raised underground." Harry ignored them, maintaining the dignified bearing Ragnock had instilled in him. He wore a formal tunic in the Silverblade clan colors of deep blue and silver, with subtle goblin armor beneath. His lightning scar was visible on his forehead, his green eyes alert as they swept the gathering crowd. "Ollivanders first," Griphook directed. "Wand selection can be time-consuming." The ancient wandmaker's shop fell silent as they entered, the guards remaining outside while Harry and Griphook approached the counter. "I wondered when I'd be seeing you, Mr. Potter." Ollivander emerged from the shadows, his silvery eyes widening slightly at the sight of Harry's goblin-style attire. "You have your mother's eyes. But the company you keep is unexpected." "Harry Silverblade Potter," Harry corrected automatically. "I need a wand for Hogwarts." Ollivander glanced at Griphook, then back to Harry. "Indeed. The wand chooses the wizard, Mr. Potter. Let's find which one claims you." The process took nearly an hour, with wand after wand rejecting Harry until finally, the holly and phoenix feather wand shot gold and red sparks when he grasped it. "Curious," Ollivander murmured. "Very curious." "What's curious?" Harry asked. "I remember every wand I've ever sold, Mr. Potter. The phoenix who gave the feather for your wand gave one other." "Just one?" "The wand that gave you that scar." Harry's eyes narrowed. "Voldemort's wand." Griphook hissed at the name, while Ollivander flinched. "We do not speak his name." "Fear of a name increases fear of the thing itself," Harry replied, quoting one of Ragnarok's favorite sayings. Ollivander studied him with new interest. "Your upbringing has given you unusual perspectives, Mr. Potter. I think we can expect remarkable things from you. After all, he who must not be named did great things." "Terrible, but great." Harry paid 7 galleons for the wand, uncomfortable with Ollivander's assessment. Outside, the crowd had grown, with some wizards openly gawking at the unusual sight of goblin guards escorting a young wizard. Books next, Griphook decided, leading their group toward Flourish and Blots. Their progress halted when a tall, silver-haired wizard stepped directly into their path, his aristocratic features set in cold disdain. "So the rumors are true," Lucius Malfoy said loudly enough for onlookers to hear. "Harry Potter, raised by bank tellers." Griphook's hand moved to his concealed blade, but Harry stepped forward confidently. "Mr. Malfoy, I presume?" "The goblins keep detailed records of all significant account holders." Harry's voice carried the precise, measured tone of goblin diplomatic speech. "Including those who claimed imperious influence after Voldemort's fall." Malfoy's face tightened as murmurs rippled through the watching crowd. "You should be careful discussing matters you don't understand, boy. And careful of the company you keep." "I always choose my company carefully," Harry replied, glancing pointedly at Draco, who stood behind his father with a confused expression. "Good day, Mr. Malfoy." Their shopping continued with similar encounters, some hostile, others merely curious. By the time they reached Madame Malkin's for robes, Harry had grown weary of the constant stares and whispers. Inside the shop, he found himself standing beside a round-faced boy who looked as uncomfortable as Harry felt. "Hogwarts too?" the boy asked nervously. "Yes," Harry replied, grateful for a normal conversation. "First year." "Same here. I'm Neville Longbottom." He glanced anxiously at Griphook. "Are you?" "Harry Potter," he answered, deciding to use the simpler version of his name. "But I was raised by the Goblin Nation." Neville's eyes widened. "Really? My gran says nobody knew where you were all these years." "That was intentional," Harry explained as Madame Malkin began measuring him. "For security." "Makes sense," Neville nodded. "After what happened to your parents?" "And mine." Harry turned to look at him more carefully. "Your parents? They were attacked right after yours," Neville said quietly. "They're still alive, but in St. Mungo's. They don't recognize me." An unexpected connection formed between the boys, both victims of the same war, both growing up without their parents, though in very different circumstances. "Perhaps we could sit together on the train to Hogwarts," Harry suggested, surprising Griphook with the spontaneous offer of friendship. Neville's face brightened. "I'd like that." By the time they finished their shopping and returned to Gringotts, Harry's mind was swirling with everything he'd seen and heard. The wizarding world was both familiar from his lessons and strangely alien in person, filled with prejudices, curiosities, and complexities his goblin education hadn't fully captured. The night before Harry's departure for Hogwarts, Ragnar summoned him for a private conversation. They sat in the special chamber with the enchanted ceiling, currently displaying a night sky filled with stars. "You're prepared," Ragnar stated rather than asked. "Your education has been thorough." "Yes, father." Harry fiddled with the silver bracelet on his wrist, a Silverblade clan marker that contained protective enchantments. "Yet you're anxious." Harry looked up, meeting Ragnar's penetrating gaze. "I don't belong fully in either world. To goblins, I'm still human. To humans, I'm strange." "You are unique," Ragnar corrected. "That is strength, not weakness." "What if I disappoint you?" The question burst from Harry before he could contain it. "What if I become too human at Hogwarts?" Ragnar's expression softened in a way few goblins ever witnessed. "Harry, I did not adopt you merely for political advantage, though that's what I told the council. I chose you as my son because I saw something in you even as an infant: resilience, determination, an unbending spirit. Those are goblin virtues, whether you're among us or among wizards. But what if, listen carefully." Ragnar placed a gnarled hand on Harry's shoulder. "You will face challenges at Hogwarts. Some will reject you for your goblin upbringing. Others will try to use you for your wizard fame. Navigate these waters with the cunning we've taught you. Remember that profit can be measured in many currencies: gold, knowledge, alliance, respect." Harry nodded, committing the words to memory. "And know this," Ragnar continued, his voice uncharacteristically gentle. "Whether you excel or struggle, whether you embrace wizard ways or reject them, you remain my son and heir. That is a bond no magic can break." For the first time in many years, Harry embraced Ragnar, the formal distance between them momentarily dissolved. "I'll make Clan Silverblade proud," Harry promised. "I know you will." Ragnar handed him a small silver key. "This opens a special vault I've prepared for you. Not your Potter vault, but a Silverblade trust. Use it wisely at school." The next morning, Harry stood on platform 9 3/4, the Hogwarts Express billowing steam around him. Unlike other students with parents waving goodbye, Harry was escorted by 4 goblin guards who maintained a professional perimeter around him, causing nervous glances from other families. Griphook conducted a final inspection of Harry's trunk. "Your armor is packed beneath your robes. The communications mirror is in the side pocket. Your nutrition supplements are—" "I'll be fine, Griphook," Harry interrupted with a small smile. "I'm well prepared." Griphook straightened, clearing his throat. "Indeed. Director Ragnar expects weekly reports." "And I'll provide them," Harry assured him. "Thank you. For everything." A moment of awkward silence fell between them, neither accustomed to sentimental goodbyes. "May your gold flow and your enemies tremble," Griphook finally offered the formal goblin farewell. "May your vaults prosper and your honor shine," Harry responded in perfect gobbledygook. With a final nod, Harry boarded the train, leaving behind the only family he'd known while stepping toward an uncertain future at Hogwarts. As the train pulled away from the station, he caught a last glimpse of his goblin escort standing rigidly on the platform, a sight that symbolized the unusual bridge he represented between two worlds. Harry Potter, the goblin-raised wizard, the boy who lived, heir to Clan Silverblade, was finally entering the wizarding world on his own terms. Chapter 2, Gold and Glory. The Hogwarts Express rattled through the countryside as Harry sat alone in his compartment, watching England's green hills roll by. He'd changed into plain black robes, his goblin-crafted clothes carefully stored in his trunk. Strategy sometimes requires appearing to yield while actually advancing. Ragnar's words echoed in his mind. A timid knock interrupted his thoughts. The door slid open to reveal Neville Longbottom, looking flustered. "Hi Harry. Mind if I join you? Everywhere else is full. Please." Harry gestured to the empty seat. "We did agree to sit together." Neville smiled gratefully and collapsed onto the bench. I've lost my toad, Trevor. He keeps escaping. What containment enchantments are you using? Harry asked naturally. Neville blinked. Containment enchantments. For securing valuable possessions. Harry realized his mistake when confusion crossed Neville's face. Or do wizards not typically secure their familiars? I just have a carrying box, Neville admitted. Not a very good one, obviously. Harry made a mental note. Another wizard-goblin cultural difference to navigate. Their conversation was interrupted when the compartment door slid open again. A girl with bushy brown hair and rather large front teeth stood in the doorway, already wearing her Hogwarts robes. Has anyone seen a toad? Neville's lost one. She spoke with bossy confidence. I'm Neville, Neville pointed out. Oh. Then you must be, she turned to Harry, then froze, eyes widening. You're Harry Potter. I've read all about you. You're in modern magical history, the rise and fall of the dark arts, and great wizarding events of the 20th century. Those accounts are largely inaccurate, Harry replied coolly. I wasn't consulted for any of them. The girl looked momentarily thrown but recovered quickly. I'm Hermione Granger. Nobody in my family's magical at all. I was ever so surprised when I got my letter, but pleased of course. Pleasure to meet you, Harry interrupted, extending his hand formally. Would you like to join our search for Neville's toad? I know several tracking methods that might help. Hermione looked both surprised and intrigued. You know tracking spells already? They're not in our first-year books. Not wizard tracking spells, Harry clarified. Goblin methods. Goblins? Hermione's curiosity visibly intensified. The books mentioned rumors you'd disappeared, but nothing about goblins. The books are incomplete, Harry said, standing. Neville, do you have something that belongs to Trevor? Something he's been in contact with recently? Neville produced Trevor's carrying case. Harry took it, closed his eyes, and passed his hand over it, murmuring in gobbledygook. When he opened his eyes, a faint silvery trail was visible to him alone. This way, he said, stepping into the corridor. Hermione and Neville followed as Harry traced the magical signature down the train, past curious onlookers and through several cars. That's incredible magic, Hermione said, hurrying to keep up. How does it work? Is it wandless? I thought underage wizards couldn't. It's not wizard magic, Harry explained patiently. Goblin tracking magic works differently. It's based on ownership bonds rather than physical traits. The trail led them to a compartment occupied by several older students in green-trimmed robes. Harry knocked and slid the door open without waiting for permission. Excuse me, he said with the direct approach goblins preferred. A toad belonging to Neville Longbottom is in this compartment. We've come to retrieve it. A stocky older boy looked up with a scowl. And who might you be, First Eye? Harry Potter, he answered simply. The compartment fell silent. 6 pairs of eyes fixed on Harry's forehead, seeking the famous scar. Potter? A girl with dark hair leaned forward. The Potter who disappeared? I never disappeared. I was raised by the Goblin Nation. Harry spotted movement under a seat. There's the toad. He knelt and retrieved Trevor, who seemed resigned to being caught. As he straightened, Harry studied the older students with the assessing gaze Ragnarok had taught him, evaluating potential allies or enemies. Slytherins, he noted, recognizing the green trim. The House of Ambition. And purebloods, the stocky boy added pointedly. Not creature lovers. Harry smiled thinly. The goblins would find it amusing to be called creatures by wizards who can't tell gold from leprechaun gold without help. A tall boy with perfect posture chuckled. He's got you there, Flint. Thank you for unintentionally hosting Neville's toad, Harry said formally, backing toward the door. May your vaults prosper. Outside, Hermione stared at him with fascination. That was brilliant. But also a bit rude? Harry guessed. Different, she corrected diplomatically. You don't act like I expected Harry Potter would. I'm not the Harry Potter from your books, he replied, handing Trevor to a grateful Neville. I'm the real one. The great hall exceeded even Harry's expectations. The enchanted ceiling, the floating candles, the ancient stone walls, it was magnificent, even to someone raised amid the splendor of Gringotts' deepest chambers. Harry stood with the other first years, aware of the stares and whispers following him. The hat's song about the four houses confirmed what he'd learned about Hogwarts, though he noted with interest that it mentioned nothing of the historical tensions between houses. When McGonagall called Potter, Harry, the hall fell silent. Harry walked forward confidently, sat on the stool, and allowed the ancient hat to drop over his eyes. Well, 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 a small voice said in his ear. What have we here? Harry Potter raised by goblins. How extraordinary. Harry Silverblade Potter, Harry corrected mentally. Indeed. I see it all in your mind, raised in the depths, trained in goblin ways, yet with human magic flowing strong. Fascinating combination. Where to put you? Harry waited, having learned from the goblins that silence often yielded more information than questions. You've got courage, oh my yes. Gryffindor would welcome that. But such cunning too, and ambition, Slytherin traits those. Knowledge hungers in you like a Ravenclaw. And loyalty, deep, fierce loyalty to your adoptive clan, how very Hufflepuff. I'll succeed regardless of house, Harry thought. Confidence. I like that. But where would you grow best? Where would you fulfill your potential? You bridge two worlds, Mr. Potter. Your house should help, not hinder that purpose. Harry considered. I need allies from all houses to succeed. Strategic thinking. Very goblin of you. In that case, better be Slytherin. The last word was shouted to the entire hall. Silence followed, absolute, shocked silence. Then scattered, hesitant applause began from the Slytherin table. Harry removed the hat and walked calmly toward his new house, aware of the stunned expressions throughout the hall. The boy who lived, in Slytherin. He saw Dumbledore watching him closely, McGonagall looking concerned, and a hook-nosed professor regarding him with undisguised shock. The Slytherins made space for him, their expressions ranging from calculating to suspicious. Harry sat down beside a blond boy he recognized from Diagon Alley, Draco Malfoy. Potter, Malfoy acknowledged, clearly uncertain how to react. Didn't expect you in Slytherin. Neither did they, Harry nodded toward the head table. Expectations are useful tools when subverted. A girl across the table leaned forward. Is it true you were raised by goblins? Yes, Harry replied simply. Clan Silverblade. Director Ragnarok adopted me after my parents' murder. The table fell silent again, processing this information. But why would goblins take in a wizard child? An older student asked. Harry smiled slightly. Why wouldn't they? The Potter fortune is substantial. This answer, appealing to financial motivation, seemed to satisfy most of the Slytherins, who nodded as if it now made perfect sense. Harry let them believe this simplified version. The truth was far more complex, but revealing everything would be strategically unwise. By the time they reached the Slytherin common room in the dungeons, Harry had learned that his house reputation wasn't as straightforward as his goblin tutors had suggested. Yes, Slytherins valued ambition and cunning, but they also navigated complex social hierarchies based on blood status, family connections, and magical power. First years, attention. The fifth-year prefect gathered them near the fireplace. Welcome to Slytherin House. We have a proud tradition to uphold. Whatever happens inside these walls stays here. Outside, we present a united front. Any house conflicts remain private. Understand? Nods all around. Now, Professor Snape will address you. The hook-nosed Professor Harry had noticed earlier swept into the common room, his black robes billowing. His gaze swept over the first years, pausing momentarily on Harry. You have been selected for Slytherin because you possess the qualities our founder valued: ambition, resourcefulness, determination, and a certain disregard for rules that limit your potential. Snape's voice was barely above a whisper, yet commanded complete attention. Society often misunderstands these qualities. You will face prejudice. Use it to your advantage. Learn to navigate perceptions. Slytherin House produces leaders because we understand that power flows to those who know how to channel it. His dark eyes fixed on Harry again. Some of you arrive with unusual backgrounds. In Slytherin, your future success matters more than your past circumstances. Prove your worth. After Snape departed, the first years were shown to their dormitories. Harry found his trunk beside a four-poster bed hung with green curtains. As the other boys chatted and unpacked, Harry performed a subtle goblin warding ritual around his bed and belongings, nothing harmful, just an alert system if anyone tampered with his possessions. Blaise Zabini noticed the faint silver glow before it faded. What spell was that, Potter? Goblin security measure, Harry answered honestly. Old habits. Do goblins expect theft even among allies? Draco asked with a slight sneer. Harry met his gaze steadily. Goblins believe clear boundaries prevent misunderstandings. I meant no offense. Theodore Knott, a quiet boy with calculating eyes, nodded approvingly. Smart. New environments present unknown variables. Harry recognized a potential ally in Knott's pragmatism. That night, as he lay in his four-poster listening to the lake water lapping against the windows, Harry mentally composed his first report to Ragnarok, sorted into Slytherin. House values ambition but navigates complex social hierarchies. Identifying potential allies. Will proceed with caution. Breakfast the next morning brought Harry's first owl post, a formal letter delivered by a regal Gringotts eagle owl that drew stares from across the hall. The parchment bore the Silverblade clan seal and contained both a message from Ragnarok and financial statements for Harry's accounts. Your family sends bank statements for breakfast? Draco asked, trying to peek at the parchment. Harry folded it away smoothly. Director Ragnarok believes financial awareness should begin early. He slipped into the formal goblin phrasing naturally. A warrior ignorant of his resources fights half-blind. And is Ragnarok your father? Pansy Parkinson asked, her face scrunching as if the concept was difficult to grasp. He is. Harry's tone discouraged further questions. Professor Snape approached with their schedules, pausing at Harry. Mr. Potter. Your guardian. Sent several communications regarding your dietary requirements and exercise regimen. Harry nodded. The Goblin Nation has specific nutrition protocols for developing magical cores. Indeed. Snape's expression revealed nothing. See me after breakfast to discuss accommodations. When Harry met with Snape in his office later, the professor studied him with undisguised curiosity. I find myself in an unprecedented situation, Mr. Potter. The boy who lived, raised by goblins, sorted into my house. Snape tapped his fingers against his desk. Explain to me how this arrangement with the Goblin Nation functions. Harry straightened his posture. Director Ragnarok of Clan Silverblade legally adopted me according to Goblin law after my parents' murder. I was raised in the Goblin Nation while maintaining awareness of my wizard heritage. I hold dual citizenship, effectively. And your magical education thus far? Comprehensive in Goblin magic, metallurgy, warding, contract binding, tracking. Less structured in wizard magic, though I've practiced with a training wand since age 9. Snape's eyebrows rose slightly. Training wands are restricted items. Goblins have different regulatory frameworks, Harry replied diplomatically. A faint smile touched Snape's lips. Indeed. Now, regarding these dietary requirements, they're rather extensive. Goblin nutrition science differs from wizard approaches. My human physiology requires adaptations to standard goblin protocols. Snape considered him for a moment. You speak like a diplomat, Mr. Potter. An unusual quality in an 11-year-old. Harry wasn't sure how to respond to that observation. Your situation presents both challenges and opportunities, Snape continued. Slytherin House values heritage, yet yours is complex. Some students will resent your unusual upbringing. Others will seek advantage through association with your name. I'm aware, Professor. Are you? Snape leaned forward. Your fame in the wizarding world extends beyond what you likely comprehend. You are a symbol of Voldemort's defeat, of hope during dark times. That symbolism carries power, and in Slytherin, power attracts both allies and enemies. Harry nodded. Director Ragnarok prepared me for political complexities. I'm sure he did, Snape said dryly. Remember this, Potter, I expect my Slytherins to be cunning, not cruel, ambitious, not arrogant. Your unique background gives you perspectives others lack. Use them wisely. As Harry left Snape's office, he sensed that this conversation had been more significant than it appeared on the surface. The professor had offered neither warmth nor hostility, just pragmatic advice and subtle acknowledgement of Harry's unusual situation. Classes brought new challenges. Harry quickly discovered that his goblin education gave him advantages in some areas and significant gaps in others. In charms, Professor Flitwick, who Harry learned had goblin ancestry, was delighted by Harry's precise wand work. Excellent levitation charm, Mr. Potter. 5 points to Slytherin. Your wand movement is unusually precise for a first attempt. Thank you, Professor. Goblins emphasize exactitude in magical gestures. Transfiguration proved more challenging. When Professor McGonagall instructed them to turn matches into needles, Harry struggled with the fundamental concept. I don't understand why we're changing something's essential nature rather than creating what we need, he whispered to Theodore not beside him. Because creating something from nothing is much harder magic, Theo explained. Transfiguration is easier than conjuration. But the match still knows it's a match, Harry argued. In goblin metallurgy, we respect the material's inherent properties and work with them, not against them. McGonagall overheard and approached their desk. An interesting perspective, Mr. Potter. Goblin magic does indeed differ philosophically from wizard approaches. However, while you're in my classroom, you'll need to adapt to wizard methodology. By the end of class, Harry had produced a needle-shaped object that still ignited when struck. McGonagall assigned him extra reading on fundamental transfiguration theory. Potions brought another set of challenges. Snape began class with a roll call, pausing at Harry's name. Ah, yes, he said softly. Harry Potter. Our new celebrity. Several Slytherins snickered, while the Gryffindors they shared the class with looked uncomfortable. Harry maintained the neutral expression he'd perfected in goblin diplomatic meetings. Snape launched into a poetic speech about the subtle science of potion-making, then suddenly barked, Potter. What would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood? Harry recognized the ingredients from goblin healing potions. The base for the draught of living death, sir. Goblins use a similar combination in ceremonial sleep rituals, though with silver dust as a stabilizer instead of wizard ingredients. Snape's eyes narrowed. Where would you look if I told you to find a bezoar? A goat's stomach traditionally, though goblin alchemists create synthetic versions using crystallized earth magic and stomached iron. What is the difference between monkshood and wolfsbane? Same plant, also called aconite. Goblins consider it cursed due to its association with werewolves, who historically hunted goblins during the creature wars of the 1500s. A heavy silence fell over the classroom. Snape studied Harry with an unreadable expression. Correct, if unnecessarily expanded with goblin perspectives. 1 point to Slytherin. He addressed the class, well. Why aren't you all writing this down? Throughout the lesson, Harry noticed Snape treating him differently than the other students, not with the favoritism he showed other Slytherins nor the derision he directed at Gryffindors, but with a calculating assessment, as if Harry were a rare ingredient whose properties weren't fully documented. When they brewed their first simple potion, Harry's goblin training proved valuable. He prepared ingredients with precision, maintained exact heat levels, and produced a perfect cure for boils. Snape gave a curt nod of approval but no verbal praise. After class, Hermione Granger approached him in the corridor. "Harry, how did you know all those answers? Those weren't in our textbook." "Goblin education is different," Harry explained, walking toward the Great Hall for lunch. "We focus on the practical applications and historical contexts of ingredients rather than standardized preparations." "That's fascinating. I've read that goblin magic operates on different principles than wizard magic, but the books don't explain much." Hermione fell into step beside him. "Would you be willing to tell me more? For academic purposes." Harry considered her request. Goblin knowledge was typically guarded closely, but sharing general information might help build useful connections. "I can share some basics." "The library after dinner?" Hermione beamed. "That would be wonderful. Thank you." As she hurried off, Draco appeared at Harry's side with Crabbe and Goyle flanking him. "Making friends with a mudblood, Potter. Shouldn't you have higher standards?" Harry stopped walking. The slur wasn't unfamiliar. His goblin education had covered wizard prejudices extensively, but hearing it directed at someone he'd just spoken with triggered an instinctive response. "I evaluate people based on their abilities and character," Harry said coldly. "Granger shows promising intelligence. Strategic alliances aren't limited by bloodlines." "You sound like a politician," Draco sneered. "Is that how goblins raised you? To make strategic alliances with anyone?" "Goblins raised me to recognize value where others see only categories." Harry met Draco's gaze steadily. "It served them well in building the financial system your family's wealth depends on." Draco's pale cheeks flushed. Before he could respond, Blaise Zabini joined them. "He's got you there, Malfoy," Blaise said smoothly. "My mother always says the goblins know more about pureblood fortunes than the families themselves do." The moment passed, but Harry filed away the interaction as significant. Navigating Slytherin would require balancing traditional house values against his own goblin-influenced perspectives. In the library that evening, Harry found Hermione already surrounded by books. "I've been researching goblin history," she explained as he sat down. "But most of these books are written from a wizard perspective. They make goblins sound quite violent." "History is written by the victorious," Harry replied. "The rebellions these books describe as violent uprisings are called dignity reclamations in goblin histories." For the next hour, Harry explained basic principles of goblin culture, their emphasis on honor and binding agreements, their sophisticated financial systems, their approach to magic as an extension of intent rather than an external force to be manipulated. "It sounds much more practical than some wizard approaches," Hermione observed. "But if goblins have their own powerful magic, why do wizards restrict their wand use?" "Fear disguised as regulation," Harry said simply. Wand restrictions came after the Treaty of 1752 when wizard authorities realized goblin metallurgy could enhance wand capabilities beyond wizard standards. "That's not mentioned in a history of magic at all." Hermione looked outraged. "Historical accounts reflect their authors' biases," Harry said with a shrug. "Goblins do the same, their histories minimize goblin aggression while emphasizing wizard treachery." "And where do you stand?" Hermione asked perceptively. "Between these perspectives?" Harry considered the question carefully. "I value truth. Seeing both sides helps me identify it." Their conversation was interrupted by Neville Longbottom timidly approaching their table. "Hi Harry, Hermione. Sorry to bother you, but I'm having trouble with our potions essay." "Join us," Harry offered, noticing the Gryffindor boy's nervous glance at his Slytherin tie. House rivalries are artificial constructs designed to limit cooperation. Neville blinked. They are. Of course, Harry stated as if it were obvious. Dividing potential allies weakens collective strength. Hermione looked thoughtful. That's an interesting perspective. Their impromptu study group expanded when Susan Bones and Hannah Abbott from Hufflepuff cautiously joined them, drawn by Hermione's helpful explanation of wand movements. By the time Madame Pants shooed them out at closing, Harry had established connections across 3 houses. Back in the Slytherin common room, Theodore Nott observed, "You were in the library with Gryffindors and Hufflepuffs." "Yes," Harry acknowledged, pulling out his astronomy charts. "Any particular reason?" "Information exchanges benefit all parties when structured properly." Harry glanced up. "Would you like to join next time? Your insight on wizard genealogy would be valuable." Theo studied him for a moment. "You're playing a different game than the rest of us, aren't you, Potter?" "Not a different game. Just with a broader board." Flying lessons revealed another area where Harry's goblin upbringing diverged from wizard norms. When Madame Hooch instructed them to command their brooms with "up," Harry's shot immediately to his hand, but he held it awkwardly, unfamiliar with the traditional wizard flying posture. "Potter, have you never ridden a broom?" Hooch asked, correcting his grip. "Goblins don't fly, Madame Hooch. They consider it unnatural to abandon connection with stone and earth." This admission caused snickers from some students, but Harry remained unembarrassed. His goblin training had emphasized acknowledging limitations without shame. Weakness recognized could be weakness addressed. When Neville injured himself and Hooch escorted him to the hospital wing, Draco seized the opportunity to mock the Gryffindor, grabbing Neville's dropped remembrall. "Look what the clumsy oaf dropped." Harry stepped forward. "That belongs to Neville. Return it." "Or what, Potter?" Draco challenged. "Going to call your goblin guards?" "I don't need guards to resolve a simple property dispute." Harry held out his hand. "The item has a clear ownership bond. Return it or compensate its value plus inconvenience tax." Several students laughed at Harry's formal phrasing, but he remained serious. In goblin culture, property rights were sacred, and their violation demanded standardized responses. "I think I'll leave it somewhere for Longbottom to find," Draco said, mounting his broom. "How about on the roof?" He soared into the air. Without hesitation, Harry mounted his own broom and followed, discovering to his surprise that flying felt instinctively right, despite his lack of experience. He accelerated toward Draco with precision that belied his novice status. "Give it back, Malfoy," Harry called, maneuvering his broom with natural skill. "Or I'll knock you off that broom." "Oh yeah?" Draco looked worried but tried to maintain his bravado. "Catch it, then." He threw the remembrall high into the air. Harry tracked its trajectory with the same focus goblins used when examining flawed gemstones, then accelerated in a steep dive. The ground rushed toward him, but he calculated his approach with mathematical precision, catching the glass ball inches from the ground before pulling up in a perfect recovery. Landing smoothly, Harry found himself facing Professor McGonagall, who had witnessed his dive from her office window. "Mr. Potter." "Never in all my years, Professor, I apologize for violating safety protocols," Harry interrupted formally. "I was recovering stolen property on behalf of its rightful owner." McGonagall blinked, momentarily thrown by his response. That is not the point. You could have broken your neck." "The risk was calculated based on observed trajectory and broom capabilities," Harry explained. "Goblin risk assessment protocols are quite thorough." McGonagall stared at him, then shook her head. "Follow me, Mr. Potter." To Harry's surprise, she led him not to her office but to the Slytherin Quidditch captain, Marcus Flint. "Flint, I've found you a seeker," she announced. The burly fifth year looked skeptical. "Potter? He's a first year." "He caught this," McGonagall held up Neville's remembrall, "after a 50-foot dive. Didn't even scratch himself." Charlie Weasley couldn't have done it. Flint's expression transformed from doubt to calculating interest. Is that right? Let's see what you can do, Potter. By dinner, Harry had been appointed Slytherin's new Seeker, the youngest house player in a century. The news traveled quickly, generating mixed reactions, Slytherins pleased with their advantage, other houses dismayed, and professors concerned about bending rules for a first year. That evening, Harry wrote to Ragnarok, explaining the unexpected development and requesting permission to accept a racing broom if the team provided one. The response came by express owl the very next morning, a Nimbus 2000 delivered directly to the Slytherin table with a note in Ragnarok's spiky handwriting. Success in all forms brings honor to Clan Silverblade. Excel on your own terms. Halloween brought Harry's first true test of loyalty. During the feast, Professor Quirrell burst into the Great Hall, announcing a troll in the dungeons before fainting dramatically. As prefects led students back to dormitories, Harry overheard Ron Weasley mention that Hermione was crying in the girls' bathroom, unaware of the danger. Our dormitory is in the dungeons, Harry pointed out to the Slytherin prefect. Where the troll is. Snape's redirecting us to the library instead, the prefect explained. While the Slytherins headed towards safety, Harry slipped away, calculating risks versus obligations. Hermione didn't know about the troll. A goblin never abandons a profitable alliance. And despite their limited interactions, Harry considered Hermione a valuable connection. He found the girls' bathroom just as a horrific smell reached his nostrils. The troll, 12 feet tall with granite-gray skin, was shambling through the door where Hermione would be. Harry acted on instinct, drawing his wand and calling out, "Hey! Over here!" The troll turned, confused. Harry remembered his combat training with Barknot, against larger opponents, target joints and leveraged their mass against them. Wingardium Leviosa, he shouted, not at the troll but at its massive club. The weapon rose from the troll's grip, hovered for a moment, then dropped directly onto its owner's head with a sickening crack. As the troll collapsed unconscious, Harry rushed into the bathroom. "Hermione! Are you hurt?" The girl emerged from a stall, shocked. "Harry? What are you doing here? What was that noise?" "Troll. Knocked out now. We need to move before professors arrive with questions." Too late. Professors McGonagall, Snape, and Quirrell appeared in the doorway, taking in the unconscious troll and the two students. "What on earth were you thinking?" McGonagall demanded, cold fury in her voice. "You could have been killed." Before Harry could respond, Hermione stepped forward. "Please, Professor McGonagall, he was looking for me." "Miss Granger. I went looking for the troll because I thought I could deal with it on my own, you know, because I've read all about them." Hermione hung her head. "If Harry hadn't found me, I'd be dead now." Harry maintained a neutral expression, though he was surprised by Hermione's lie. McGonagall reprimanded Hermione and awarded Harry 5 points for sheer dumb luck before dismissing them. As they walked away, Harry noticed Snape's robes were torn and bloody around his leg. The professor caught Harry looking and covered the injury quickly, his expression darkening. "Why did you lie to McGonagall?" Harry asked Hermione quietly. "You came to help me when nobody else did," she replied simply. "That deserved loyalty in return." Harry nodded, a new understanding forming between them. The Goblin word for that is Krentak, honor debt freely given, not coerced. "I like that concept," Hermione said. "Thank you, Harry." "Clan stands with clan," he replied with the traditional Goblin response. Though Hermione didn't understand its significance, the words felt right. The mystery of Snape's injured leg and Quirrell's increasingly suspicious behavior led Harry to investigate. Using Goblin tracking magic and careful observation, he noticed patterns: Quirrell lurking near the third-floor corridor, Snape watching him, and a three-headed dog guarding a trapdoor that Harry discovered during a careful nighttime reconnaissance mission. "Something valuable is hidden at Hogwarts," he told Hermione and Neville in their regular study group, which now included Theodore Nott and Blaise Zabini from Slytherin, and occasionally Susan Bones from Hufflepuff. Something worth both sophisticated magical protection and repeated theft attempts. How do you know it's valuable? Theo asked skeptically. Resource allocation indicates priority, Harry explained. Dumbledore announced the corridor was forbidden at the welcome feast, high-profile security announcement. The Cerberus is a Class XXXXX creature, expensive to maintain and feed. Multiple professors appear involved in protection, significant labor investment. Hermione looked impressed. That's remarkably logical. But what could be so important? Something small but precious, Harry mused. During our Gringotts visit before term, Hagrid emptied a high-security vault on Dumbledore's orders. The timing suggests correlation. You sound like a detective, Neville commented. Goblins are investigators by nature, Harry replied. Financial forensics requires attention to patterns. Their opportunity for further investigation came during the first Quidditch match, where Harry's broom suddenly tried to buck him off mid-game. While fighting for control, he spotted Quirrell muttering and maintaining eye contact, a classic spellcasting tell. Nearby, Snape appeared to be counter-cursing. After Harry managed to catch the snitch, literally swallowing it in a diving catch that won Slytherin the match, he connected more dots: Quirrell's interest in the third-floor corridor, the attempted broom sabotage, his convenient arrival with the troll on Halloween. He's after whatever's being guarded, Harry concluded to his study group. And Snape knows it. Shouldn't we tell the professors? Neville asked nervously. Harry shook his head. Without evidence. That violates procedural integrity. You mean they wouldn't believe us, Hermione translated. Correct. We need more information. Their breakthrough came from an unexpected source. During Christmas break, which Harry spent at Hogwarts rather than returning to the Goblin Nation, a strategic decision to observe the castle with fewer students present, he received an anonymous gift, an invisibility cloak with a note claiming it had belonged to his father. The cloak enabled Harry to explore the restricted section, where he discovered references to Nicholas Flamel and the Philosopher's Stone, a legendary artifact that could transform metal to gold and produce the elixir of life. Gold creation. Harry's eyes widened at the implications. That would destabilize the entire Goblin financial system. You're worried about banking when it also grants immortality? Hermione asked, exasperated. Immortality is a personal gain, Harry explained. Economic collapse affects millions. The goblins have built safeguards against artificial gold for centuries. If the stone's capabilities became widely known, the pieces aligned. Dumbledore was hiding the stone at Hogwarts. Quirrell, or someone working through him, wanted it. Snape was trying to protect it. When Harry shared his suspicions about Quirrell with Professor Snape, the potions master's response was unexpected. Your concerns are noted, Potter. However, school security matters remain the province of the headmaster. But sir, the evidence suggests that you've been conducting unauthorized investigations into matters beyond your concern, Snape finished sharply. 5 points from Slytherin for overstepping boundaries. Return to your dormitory. Frustrated but undeterred, Harry continued monitoring the situation with his study group, which had evolved into a kind of interhouse intelligence network. They catalogued the professors likely involved in protecting the stone based on their specialties, theorized about the defenses beyond the Cerberus, and kept watch on Quirrell's movements. When Harry noticed Hagrid had acquired a dragon egg, an extremely restricted item, through a stranger in a pub who asked about magical creatures, including three-headed dogs, he recognized the pattern. Information extraction through artificial camaraderie, he explained to Hermione. Classic Goblin negotiation tactic. Quirrell got Hagrid drunk and learned how to get past the dog. The situation accelerated when Dumbledore was suddenly called to the Ministry of Magic. That night, Harry gathered Hermione and Neville. Quirrell will move tonight, he predicted. The headmaster's absence creates optimal opportunity. Shouldn't we get a professor? Hermione insisted. McGonagall didn't believe us earlier, Harry reminded her. And Snape is monitoring, but may not anticipate tonight's timing. So what do we do? Neville asked, looking terrified but determined. We protect the stone ourselves, Harry decided. The obstacles beyond the trapdoor confirmed Harry's theory about Professor involvement: Sprout's devil's snare, Flitwick's charmed keys, McGonagall's chess set, and Snape's logic puzzle with potions. Harry approached each challenge with Goblin analytical precision, while Hermione contributed wizard knowledge and Neville provided unexpected plant expertise with the devil's snare. The final chamber held a surprise. Quirrell stood before the mirror of Ariste, turban still in place but demeanor completely transformed, no stutter, no trembling, just focused malevolence. I wondered if I'd be seeing you, Potter, he said coldly. You're working for Voldemort, Harry stated, the pieces finally connecting. Quirrell smiled. Very good, Potter. Yes, my master is with me wherever I go. He began unwrapping his turban to reveal a horrifying sight, a face protruding from the back of his head, snake-like, with red eyes and slits for nostrils. Harry Potter. The face whispered. See what I've become. Mere shadow and vapor, forced to share another's body, but with the elixir of life, I can create a body of my own. Harry assessed the tactical situation rapidly. Direct magical confrontation would be suicidal against a fully trained wizard possessed by a Dark Lord. But goblins never fought fair when fighting smart would win. You need the stone, Harry acknowledged, stepping closer to the mirror. But only someone who wants to find it, not use it, can retrieve it from the mirror. Dumbledore's final protection. Then get it for me. Voldemort commanded. Look in the mirror and tell me what you see. Harry stood before the mirror, employing goblin occlumency techniques to shield his true intentions. In the reflection, he saw himself placing a blood-red stone in his pocket, and felt the real stone materialize there simultaneously. Well? Quirrell demanded. What do you see? I see myself as head of Gringotts, Harry lied smoothly. Director Ragnarok is presenting me with the Goblin Friendship Cup. He lies. Voldemort hissed. Seize him. Quirrell lunged forward, but when his hands touched Harry's skin, he screamed in agony as his flesh blistered and smoked. Harry, recalling goblin combat training, pressed his advantage instantly, grabbing Quirrell's face and forcing contact until the possessed professor collapsed. As darkness claimed him from magical exhaustion, Harry's last thought was that Ragnarok would be pleased with his resource protection protocols, if not his reckless risk assessment. He woke in the hospital wing with Dumbledore watching him thoughtfully. The stone? Harry asked immediately. Safe, Dumbledore assured him. Nicholas and I have decided it must be destroyed. Harry frowned. The goblins would consider that artifact destruction rather than protection. Perhaps. But sometimes destruction prevents greater harm. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. You've had quite an adventure for your first year at Hogwarts. Unnecessary risk, Harry admitted. Director Ragnarok will be displeased with my procedural violations. I rather think he'll be proud of your courage and resourcefulness, Dumbledore countered. You've displayed traits from all houses: Slytherin cunning, Ravenclaw intelligence, Hufflepuff loyalty, and Gryffindor bravery. Harry considered this. The hat said similar things during my sorting. Did it? Dumbledore smiled. How interesting. You know, Harry, I've been corresponding with Director Ragnarok regarding your unique situation. Harry tensed. Have you? Indeed. We both want what's best for you, though we might define that differently. Dumbledore leaned forward. Tell me, are you happy with your life among the goblins? The question echoed McGonagall's from their first meeting. Harry considered it more carefully this time. They're my family, he said finally. They've given me structure, knowledge, purpose. Happiness isn't a goblin priority, but fulfillment through achievement is. A very mature perspective, Dumbledore observed. Yet I wonder if James and Lily might have wished for moments of simple joy in their son's life as well. The mention of his birth parents stirred something in Harry. Before he could respond, Madame Pomfrey arrived to shoo Dumbledore away, leaving Harry with unsettled thoughts. At the end of your feast, Slytherin had won the House Cup, partly due to Harry's Quidditch performance and partly through the points he and his study group had earned across subjects. As he prepared to return to the Goblin Nation for summer, Harry reflected on his first year among wizards. He had succeeded academically, proven his worth in Quidditch, protected a valuable magical artifact, and even faced Voldemort. By Goblin standards, these achievements would merit formal recognition from the clan. Yet Harry found himself valuing less quantifiable outcomes: the alliance-turned friendship with Hermione and Neville, the respect he'd earned from professors like Flitwick and McGonagall, even the complex relationship with Snape, who had protected him despite apparent personal conflict. On the Hogwarts Express home, Harry's compartment included students from all four houses. His study group had expanded throughout the year. They discussed summer plans and promised to correspond, exchanging addresses and handshakes. When they reached King's Cross, Harry spotted Griphook waiting on the platform with 4 goblin guards, a formal escort worthy of the Silverblade heir. "Your first year was productive?" Griphook asked as they made their way toward the goblin transportation area. "Educationally beneficial," Harry confirmed. "And strategically informative." Griphook nodded approvingly. "Director Ragnarok awaits your full report." As they prepared to depart, Harry glanced back at platform 9 3/4, watching his schoolmates reunite with their families. Hermione caught his eye and waved. He raised his hand in farewell, feeling the invisible line that connected his two worlds stretch but hold strong. He would return to Hogwarts with new knowledge from the Goblin Nation, and bring wizard insights back to Clan Silverblade. The balance would never be perfect, but perhaps that tension itself was valuable, keeping him connected to both worlds while belonging fully to neither. That night, kneeling formally before Ragnarok in the great ceremonial hall of the Goblin Nation, Harry completed his report on the year's events. "You faced the wizard who killed your birth parents," Ragnarok observed. "How did that feel?" The question surprised Harry. Goblins rarely asked about feelings, focusing instead on actions and outcomes. "I felt clarity," Harry answered honestly. "Not hate or fear, but purpose. He threatens both my worlds. Both my families. That makes him an enemy worthy of all my resources to defeat." Ragnarok studied him, then did something unprecedented. He stepped down from his ceremonial chair and placed both hands on Harry's shoulders. "You have honored Clan Silverblade this year, my son. Not through perfect adherence to goblin ways, but by forging your own path that respects both heritages." He pressed his forehead briefly against Harry's, the goblin gesture of deepest familial connection. "I am proud of the wizard you are becoming." Those words, more than any academic achievement or magical victory, made Harry's first year complete. Chapter 3, Enemies of the Heir. Summer with the goblins felt different after a year at Hogwarts. Harry noticed it immediately when Griphook escorted him through the grand entrance tunnel of the Goblin Nation. The familiar stone passageways seemed smaller somehow, the torchlight dimmer, the ceiling lower. He'd grown several inches during the school year, but it wasn't just physical, something in his perspective had shifted. "Director Ragnarok has scheduled your summer education program," Griphook informed him as they descended to the Silverblade clan quarters. "Combat training with Barknot resumes tomorrow. Financial analysis with Sharpclaw begins Wednesday. Language retention exercises daily. No leisure time?" Harry asked, then caught himself. Goblins didn't schedule leisure, it was considered an inefficient use of development opportunities. Griphook gave him an assessing look. "You've adopted wizard thinking patterns." "I've been exposed to alternative cultural frameworks," Harry corrected diplomatically. "It's valuable to understand diverse perspectives." A hint of amusement crossed Griphook's face. "Your linguistic adaptation remains intact, at least." Harry's reunion with Ragnarok was formal yet warmer than previous years. The Goblin director had mellowed somewhat in his approach to Harry, pride in his adopted son's achievements evident despite traditional goblin restraint. The wizarding world now knows you as the Slytherin seeker who faced the Dark Lord and prevailed, Ragnarok noted during their private dinner. How has this affected your strategic position at Hogwarts? Complex implications, Harry admitted. Respect from Slytherins for success, suspicion for my methods. Other houses uncertain whether to view me as ally or threat. And your assessment of Dumbledore? You've now interacted directly. Harry considered carefully. Powerful, manipulative, but not malicious. His goals align with mine regarding Voldemort, though his methods and priorities differ. Ragnarok nodded. A fair analysis. What of the Dark Lord himself? Diminished but determined. His focus on immortality suggests additional failsafes exist beyond possession. Your instincts align with our intelligence, Ragnarok confirmed, leaning forward. The Goblin Nation has monitored unusual movements in certain old family vaults. Objects with dark magical signatures being relocated. Preparations underway. Harry absorbed this. You believe Voldemort will return. We calculate probabilities based on financial and political indicators. Current models suggest a 78% likelihood within 5 years. Ragnarok's expression hardened. Which means your position becomes increasingly significant. The implications were clear. Harry's unique status as both goblin-raised and the boy who lived made him valuable to both sides of the coming conflict. 2 weeks into summer, Harry received his first owl from Hogwarts friends, a lengthy letter from Hermione detailing her holiday in France and her already completed summer homework. The parchment felt like a bridge between worlds, normal in a way his compartmentalized life often wasn't. More unexpected was the tiny, hyperactive owl that arrived the following day, carrying a note from Ron Weasley. Harry, weird writing to you since we hardly talked at school, but Neville mentioned your study group helped him pass potions. My dad works at the Ministry in the Misuse of Muggle Artifacts office, and he heard rumors about goblins pushing for new creature rights legislation. Is that true? Dad says relations between goblins and the Ministry are tenser than usual. Also, Fred and George are still annoyed you caught that snitch against Gryffindor last year. They're planning revenge pranks, so watch out. Harry found himself unexpectedly pleased by the casual communication. He'd had limited interaction with Ron during first year, their house rivalry creating a natural barrier. This letter suggested possibilities for expanding his network. He showed Ron's letter to Ragnarok, who confirmed the political situation. Minister Fudge rejected our proposal for revisions to the wand ban section of the Code of Wand Use. In response, we've implemented stricter verification procedures for ministry transactions. Financial leverage, Harry nodded approvingly. Precisely. Their bureaucracy now requires 14 additional forms and 3 levels of approval for routine gold transfers. Ragnarok permitted himself a sharp-toothed smile. Amazing how quickly creature rights become relevant when paperwork increases. Harry thought about his position between these worlds. Could I be useful in these negotiations? The boy who lived supporting goblin initiatives might shift public perception. A strategic option we've considered, Ragnarok acknowledged. But not yet. Your position at Hogwarts needs further consolidation before we leverage your public influence. As summer progressed, Harry divided his time between goblin training and correspondence with Hogwarts friends. He found himself increasingly drawn to the complex social dynamics of the wizarding world, something goblin culture with its clear hierarchies and pragmatic alliances didn't fully prepare him for. When his Hogwarts letter arrived with second-year book requirements, Harry anticipated the annual shopping trip to Diagon Alley with a mix of excitement and strategic calculation. Public appearances required careful management. The wizard shopping district buzzed with back-to-school activity when Harry arrived with his goblin escort. Unlike his first appearance, which had created a sensation, this visit generated more subtle reactions, curious glances, respectful nods, and occasional whispers rather than outright staring. Their first stop was Gringotts, where Harry's dual status as both Goblin family member and wizard client created the usual procedural complications. As they waited in Ragnarok's office after retrieving gold from the Potter vault, Harry noticed a newspaper headline, "Ministry raids continue, Malfoy Manor searched. Lucius Malfoy's being investigated?" Harry asked, reading further about suspected dark artifacts. Arthur Weasley's initiative, Ragnarok confirmed. The Malfoy accounts have shown unusual activity, large withdrawals followed by artifact acquisitions through intermediaries. Before Harry could ask more, the office door opened to admit a goblin messenger who whispered urgently to Ragnarok. "It seems we have a situation," Ragnarok said after the messenger departed. "Gilderoy Lockhart is hosting a book signing at Flourish and Blots. Large crowd. Security concerns." Harry grimaced. He'd read about Lockhart, a celebrity wizard whose self-promoting books were wildly popular despite containing magical inconsistencies that any goblin fact-checker would have flagged immediately. "Perhaps we should postpone the bookshop visit?" Harry suggested. "Unnecessary. Additional guards have been dispatched." Ragnarok's eyes gleamed. "Besides, your presence at a crowded wizarding event offers valuable assessment opportunities. Observe reactions, identify potential allies and threats, monitor current sentiments." Harry recognized the assignment behind the suggestion. Field intelligence gathering, a standard part of Goblin education he'd missed during his Hogwarts year. When they arrived at Flourish and Blots, the crowd was even larger than anticipated. Harry spotted several Hogwarts classmates with their families, including the Weasleys, their red hair visible above the crowd, and Hermione with who must be her Muggle parents, looking overwhelmed but fascinated. Harry had just started toward them when Gilderoy Lockhart himself looked up from signing a book and spotted him. "It can't be, Harry Potter." The crowd parted, whispers rippling outward as Lockhart lunged forward and seized Harry's arm, pulling him toward the photography area. The goblin guards tensed, hands moving toward concealed weapons. "Big smile, Harry," Lockhart said through his gleaming teeth. "Together, you and I rate the front page." Harry disengaged with a subtle wrist maneuver Barknot had taught him. "No photos, please," he said firmly. "I'm here for schoolbooks only." Lockhart faltered but recovered quickly. "Modest. That's refreshing. But I have an announcement that concerns young Harry here." Harry stepped back as Lockhart revealed he would be teaching defense against the dark arts at Hogwarts. The announcement created excited murmurs through the crowd, though Harry noted the goblin guards exchanging skeptical glances. After extracting himself from Lockhart's vicinity, Harry finally reached the Weasleys and Hermione. "Harry." Hermione beamed. "It's wonderful to see you. How was your summer? Did you finish the Transfiguration essay?" "I found the section on partial transformations particularly challenging." "Let him breathe, Hermione," Ron interrupted, stepping forward awkwardly. "Hey, Potter. Got my note?" "Yes, thanks for writing," Harry replied. "Your father's work sounds interesting." Arthur Weasley pushed forward, extending his hand enthusiastically. "Harry Potter. Ron's mentioned you. I understand you were raised by goblins." "Fascinating. I'd love to discuss their approach to enchanted objects sometime. Purely academic interest, of course. Dad works in the misuse of Muggle artifacts office," Ron explained, looking embarrassed. "An important regulatory function," Harry said diplomatically, noting how Arthur beamed at this assessment. The pleasant exchange was interrupted by a drawling voice. Well, Arthur Weasley." Lucius Malfoy had appeared, his hand on Draco's shoulder, his expression contemptuous as he surveyed the Weasley family. "Busy time at the Ministry with all those raids," Lucius continued. "I hope they're paying you overtime." He reached into Ginny Weasley's cauldron and extracted a battered second-hand book. "Obviously not. What's the use of being a disgrace to the name of wizard if they don't even pay you well for it?" Arthur flushed dark red. "We have different ideas about what disgraces the name of wizard, Malfoy." Indeed, Lucius's cold eyes shifted to Hermione's parents. Associating with Muggles. His gaze finally landed on Harry and the Goblin guards. And creature sympathizers. Harry stepped forward, employing the formal posture used in Goblin diplomatic negotiations. Mr. Malfoy. How interesting to encounter you today, considering the recent ministry attention to your family's artifact collection. Lucius's eyes narrowed dangerously. You should be careful discussing matters beyond your understanding, boy. My understanding includes interesting correlations between certain vault activities and subsequent incidents, Harry continued smoothly. The goblins maintain meticulous transaction records. A flicker of something, concern, crossed Malfoy's face before his mask of disdain returned. Playing at adult politics is dangerous for children, Potter. Even famous ones. He thrust Ginny's book back at her, then turned to Draco. Come. We'll get your books elsewhere. As they departed, Harry noticed something odd. The book Lucius had handled now appeared to have 2 volumes instead of 1, as if he'd slipped something inside it during the interaction. Before he could investigate, Arthur and Lucius erupted into a physical altercation that required Hagrid to separate them. In the confusion, Harry lost sight of Ginny and the suspicious book. When calm was restored, the Goblin guards insisted on completing their shopping efficiently and returning to safer territory. That night, reporting the incident to Ragnarok, Harry highlighted the interaction with Lucius. He seemed disturbed by the mention of vault records. Interesting. Ragnarok made a note. We'll increase monitoring on Malfoy transactions. Your observation skills are improving. But Harry couldn't shake the feeling he'd missed something important about that book. Platform 9 3/4 bustled with activity on September 1st. Harry's goblin escort drew less attention than the previous year, though still earned curious glances from first-years unfamiliar with his unusual guardianship. After formal farewells to Griphook, Harry boarded the train and found a compartment already occupied by Hermione, Neville, and surprisingly, Theodore Nott. Strategic alliance maintenance, Theo explained dryly when Harry raised an eyebrow at his presence among Gryffindors. Your study group proved advantageous last year. Also, Malfoy's been unbearable all summer, he added in a lower voice. His father's ministry troubles have him constantly ranting about blood traders. Their conversation was interrupted when the compartment door slid open to reveal Ron Weasley with his younger sister. Room for 2 more. Ron asked awkwardly. Everywhere else is full, and Ginny needs somewhere for her first trip. Of course, Harry moved his trunk to make space. Ginny Weasley sat silently, her face nearly as red as her hair, clutching a shabby book that Harry recognized from the bookshop, the one Lucius had handled. How was the rest of your summer, Harry? Hermione asked, breaking the momentary awkwardness. Educational, Harry replied. Advanced combat training with Bark Knot, financial forecasting with Director Ragnarok, magical metallurgy with Master Forgeclaw. Sounds intense, Ron commented. Don't goblins believe in holidays? Recreation without purpose is inefficient, Harry recited automatically, then caught himself. Though I did enjoy our correspondence exchange. The train journey passed pleasantly, with Harry's unusual study group performing naturally. He noticed Ginny writing intensely in what appeared to be a diary throughout the trip, barely participating in conversation. When he mentioned seeing her in flourish and blots, she merely blushed harder and buried her face deeper in her book. Upon reaching Hogwarts, second-years proceeded directly to the Great Hall while first-years departed for the traditional boat journey. Harry noticed Ginny seemed reluctant to part with her diary even for the sorting ceremony, tucking it carefully into her robes before joining the other first-years. At the Slytherin table, Draco immediately commandeered the seat beside Harry. Father says you need to be careful this year, Potter. Does he? Harry replied neutrally. There are changes coming to Hogwarts, Draco continued, lowering his voice. Father says the Chamber of Secrets might be opened again. Harry maintained his expression while mentally cataloging this information. The chamber is a myth. That's what everyone thought last time, Draco smirked. Until that mudblood died. Harry's goblin training prevented him from revealing his disgust at the slur. Interesting that your father has such specific knowledge. Draco faltered slightly. He just knows history. And he says you should remember which side your bread is buttered on, creature upbringing or not. Harry merely nodded, filing away both the warning and the implication of Lucius Malfoy's involvement. When the sorting began, he watched with interest as Ginny Weasley was placed in Gryffindor, still clutching her robes where the diary was hidden. Classes resumed with new challenges. Harry excelled in charms and defense against the dark arts, despite Lockhart's incompetence, while continuing to adapt his goblin magical perspective to transfiguration requirements. His study group expanded further, now including members from all houses who met regularly in the library. "You're building quite the coalition, Potter," Professor Snape observed during one of their house check-ins. "Curious strategy for a Slytherin." "Limited alliances restrict opportunity," Harry replied. "Goblins understand that isolationism eventually fails against coordinated opposition." Snape's lip curled slightly. "Yet some might question where your true loyalties lie. Loyalty and strategic cooperation aren't mutually exclusive, Professor." "Indeed." Snape studied him. "You'll find this year may test such philosophical positions." The cryptic warning echoed Draco's, increasing Harry's vigilance. He implemented goblin security protocols around his belongings and began mapping unusual activities at Hogwarts: Ginny Weasley's increasingly withdrawn behavior, Filch's heightened patrols, Dumbledore's frequent absence from meals. On Halloween, Harry noticed Ginny looking pale and disoriented at the feast. When he mentioned this to Ron, the redhead shrugged. "She's been writing in that diary constantly. Barely talks to anyone. Percy thinks she's just homesick." Harry frowned. "When did she get the diary?" "Dunno. Sometime before school." "Why?" Before Harry could explain his suspicions, screams erupted from the corridor outside. Students rushed to discover Mrs. Norris, Filch's cat, hanging stiffly from a torch bracket, apparently dead. Above her, foot-high words gleamed on the wall: "The Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the Heir, beware." While students whispered in fear, Harry analyzed the scene with goblin precision: the water on the floor, the spiders fleeing through a crack in the window, the unnatural rigidity of Mrs. Norris's body. Not dead but petrified. Similar to effects described in accounts of the last chamber opening 50 years ago, which he'd researched after Draco's comment. Dumbledore arrived and took charge, confirming the cat was petrified rather than dead. As staff ushered students away, Harry noticed Ginny's expression, not just frightened like the others, but horrified in a deeply personal way, her hands clutching at her robes where the diary remained. Back in the Slytherin common room, celebration rather than fear dominated the atmosphere. "You'll be next, mudbloods," Draco called out gleefully to general approval. Harry maintained his neutral expression while mentally connecting dots. Lucius Malfoy's warning. The diary he'd slipped to Ginny. The chamber legend involving Salazar Slytherin's monster targeting Muggleborns. "Not joining the festivities, Potter?" Blaise asked, dropping into the chair beside him. Calculating implications, Harry replied quietly. "Of what?" "Some prank against Filch's cat. Of someone deliberately reawakening anti-Muggleborn sentiment when tensions with non-human magical communities are already rising." Harry met Blaise's eyes. "Timing suggests coordinated destabilization." Blaise raised an eyebrow. "You really were raised by goblins, weren't you?" "Not everything is a financial conspiracy." "Patterns indicate otherwise," Harry said, rising. "Excuse me." He returned to his dormitory, activated his privacy wards, and composed a coded message to Ragnarok: Chamber of Secrets allegedly opened. Historical precedent indicates Basilisk as Slytherin's monster. Malfoy involvement suspected. Monitoring situation. Risk assessment, elevated. The next morning, Harry received an urgent summons to Professor Snape's office. Mr. Potter, Snape began without preamble. I've received rather pointed communication from your guardian regarding basilisk countermeasures. Harry maintained a neutral expression. Director Ragnarok values thorough security protocols. Indeed. He has also requested I provide you with this. Snape handed over a small silver mirror. Apparently it's been enhanced with goblin protective enchantments. Harry recognized the item, an indirect vision mirror, traditionally used by goblin scouts when exploring potentially trap-laden tombs. Looking into it would allow him to see around corners or, significantly, view a basilisk indirectly rather than making fatal eye contact. Thank you, Professor Potter. Snape's voice stopped him at the door. The headmaster is aware of your communication with the Goblin Nation. He finds it interesting that they immediately identified the nature of the threat when the faculty has not yet determined what Slytherin's monster might be. Harry chose his words carefully. Goblins maintain comprehensive historical records, including detailed accounts of the previous chamber opening. Their archives suggested basilisk involvement based on victim symptoms. Convenient access to information the ministry itself doesn't possess, Snape observed silkily. Information asymmetry offers competitive advantage, Harry replied, slipping into goblin phrasing. The ministry could request archive access through proper diplomatic channels. Snape's lip curled. I'm sure they'll get right on that. Dismissed, Potter. The following weeks brought increased tension as rumors about the heir of Slytherin spread throughout the school. Harry found himself under suspicion from multiple directions. Gryffindors eyed him warily because he was a Slytherin, while some Slytherins questioned his loyalty for associating with Muggleborns like Hermione. The situation deteriorated when Colin Creevey, a first-year Gryffindor, was found petrified. Harry intensified his investigation, dividing his study group into research teams. Hermione focused on the chamber's historical accounts, Theo discreetly questioned older Slytherins about family legends, and Neville monitored greenhouse access where roosters had been mysteriously killed. Basilisks feared rooster crows. Harry himself focused on Ginny Weasley and her suspicious diary. He arranged to, accidentally, encounter her in the library. "Hello, Ginny." "Research project?" he asked, noting the dark circles under her eyes and her defensive posture. "Just homework," she mumbled, covering her diary with other books. "That diary seems important to you," Harry observed casually. "Family heirloom?" Ginny's reaction was unexpectedly intense. "It's private. You can't have it." "I don't want it," Harry assured her, surprised by her vehemence. "Just making conversation." "Well, don't." She gathered her things hastily. "And stop watching me. I've seen you, you know. Always observing, always calculating. Like you're cataloging everyone's weaknesses." She fled, leaving Harry concerned by both her paranoia and her accurate assessment of his goblin-trained observational habits. His suspicion that the diary was somehow influencing her intensified. That evening, he shared his concerns with Hermione in their study group. "A diary that affects behavior," she frowned. "That sounds like dark magic." "Goblins have documented cases of objects imbued with personality fragments," Harry explained. "Typically created through ritual sacrifice. Extremely dangerous." "You think Ginny has a dark artifact?" Hermione looked horrified. "We should tell a professor." "Without evidence?" Harry shook his head. "We need to confirm the diary's nature first." "How?" "If it's as dangerous as you say, I'll handle it," Harry decided. "I've had training in identifying cursed objects." His opportunity came during the disastrous dueling club meeting led by Lockhart and Snape. When Draco conjured a snake during their demonstration duel, Harry instinctively called out to it in Parseltongue, a skill he discovered in the Goblin Nation years ago when conversing with serpents in their underground gardens. The entire room fell silent, staring at him in horror. "You're a Parselmouth." Draco backed away, suddenly afraid. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" Harry blinked, confused by the reaction. Among goblins, Parseltongue was considered a practical skill, useful for communicating with valuable serpent species whose venom and shed skin had financial and magical applications. It never seemed relevant to mention, he answered honestly. The damage was done. By dinner, the entire school believed Harry was the heir of Slytherin. Even some of his study group members looked at him differently. You have to understand, Hermione explained when they met in the library. Parseltongue is considered a dark ability. Salazar Slytherin was famous for it. That's illogical, Harry argued. Language acquisition isn't inherently moral. Goblins consider Parseltongue valuable for trade negotiations with serpent colonies. Wizards aren't always logical about these things, Neville said quietly. History matters. The suspicion worked to Harry's advantage, however, when searching for Ginny's diary. Students cleared hallways when he approached, giving him unprecedented freedom to track her movements. He finally located the diary, not with Ginny, but discarded in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom after what appeared to be an attempt to flush it away. Handling it with dragonskin gloves, standard goblin procedure for suspicious magical items, Harry took the diary to an unused classroom for examination. He opened it cautiously, finding blank pages that absorbed ink when he tested a drop. When he wrote, "Hello," the diary wrote back in a different handwriting, "Hello. My name is Tom Riddle. Who are you?" Harry's goblin training in cursed artifacts triggered immediate alarm. He wrote one more message with a special goblin-crafted detection quill, "What is your purpose?" The diary's response confirmed his fears, "To serve my master's noble work. To cleanse Hogwarts as Salazar intended. Who has found me?" Harry closed the diary without responding further. The detection quill had measured magical resonance patterns similar to those from Quirrell/Voldemort the previous year. This was no ordinary enchanted object, it contained a fragment of Voldemort himself. He immediately contacted Ragnarok through their secured communication mirror, showing the diary and reporting his findings. Soul fragment, Ragnarok confirmed grimly after Harry described the magical signature. Extremely dark magic. Similar objects have been detected in certain vaults. Horcrux? Harry asked, naming the forbidden magic he'd read about in goblin historical records. Ragnarok's expression darkened further. You've been in the restricted archives. Knowledge protects, Harry cited the goblin proverb. Indeed. Your assessment appears correct. Contain but do not destroy until we consult our curse-breaking division. Standard protocols for soul-anchored items. Harry secured the diary in a warded box from his trunk, planning to deliver it to Professor Snape, the only faculty member he somewhat trusted. Before he could do so, however, his dormitory was ransacked, and the diary stolen. Tracking charms he'd placed on it led back to Ginny Weasley. The situation accelerated dangerously. A Quidditch match was cancelled when Hermione and a Ravenclaw prefect were found petrified. Harry's worst fears were confirmed when Ginny herself disappeared, and a new message appeared on the wall, "Her skeleton will lie in the chamber forever." The school erupted in panic. While professors escorted students to dormitories, Harry slipped away, his path clear. Moaning Myrtle's bathroom, where he'd found the diary, where a girl had died 50 years ago, must be the chamber entrance. Trusting his goblin combat training and the specialized tools Ragnarok had sent, Harry prepared to face Slytherin's monster alone. Theo not intercepted him in the corridor. "Going monster hunting, Potter?" "Yes," Harry answered bluntly, no time for subterfuge. "Without backup?" Theo raised an eyebrow. "Not very goblin strategic of you." Harry paused. "You're offering assistance. Let's call it investment in continued alliance." Theo drew his wand. "Besides, I've compiled historical records on basilisk weaknesses while you were tracking the Weasley girl." Together they entered Myrtle's bathroom, where Harry quickly confirmed his theory by asking the ghost how she died. Her description of yellow eyes matched basilisk killing methods. Using Parseltongue, Harry opened the hidden chamber entrance in a sink. Last chance to reconsider, he told Theo before jumping into the revealed tunnel. Slytherins aren't all cowards, Theo replied, following him down. They landed in a tunnel strewn with small animal bones and shed snake skin, confirming the basilisk's presence. Harry handed Theo one of his indirect viewing mirrors. Only look at it through this, he instructed. Direct eye contact is fatal. They proceeded cautiously to a circular door engraved with serpents. Beyond it lay the chamber itself, a vast stone hull lined with serpent statues, culminating in an enormous carved face of Salazar Slytherin. At the statue's feet lay Ginny Weasley, barely breathing, with the diary beside her. A tall, handsome boy of about 16 stood nearby, watching them with cold amusement. Though semi-transparent, he was becoming more solid by the minute. Harry Potter, he said softly. The boy who lived. I've been hoping to meet you. Tom Riddle, Harry replied, positioning himself to keep both Riddle and all possible basilisk entry points in his peripheral vision. Or should I say, Lord Voldemort? Riddle's eyebrows rose slightly. Ginny told me all about you, of course. The famous Harry Potter, raised by goblins of all creatures. How did you know who I am? Magical resonance patterns are unique as fingerprints, Harry explained, moving slowly toward Ginny. The goblins keep extensive records. Your signature is catalogued. Impressive, Riddle conceded. Though it won't save you. I've already called the basilisk. On cue, the mouth of Slytherin's statue began to open. Harry signaled Theo to ready the rooster recording Ragnarok had sent, a goblin-enhanced audio crystal that played a magically amplified rooster crow. You won't defeat it, Riddle said confidently. No wizard has ever survived the King of Serpents. I'm not just a wizard, Harry replied, drawing both his wand and a goblin-forged silver dagger. I'm goblin-trained. As the basilisk emerged, Harry activated the rooster recording. The massive serpent faltered at the sound but didn't collapse as legend suggested it should. Riddle laughed. An incomplete solution, he taunted. My memory contains the countermeasure Salazar created. Basilisks can be immunized against rooster crows through proper conditioning. Harry switched tactics immediately. Theo, get Ginny. I'll handle the basilisk. While Theo darted toward the unconscious girl, Harry called out in Parseltongue, Great Serpent, I offer respect as a speaker. The basilisk paused, confused by being addressed in its language by potential prey. It won't listen to you, Riddle hissed in Parseltongue. It obeys only Slytherin's heir. Harry knew he couldn't compete with Riddle's control, but he could create distraction. Using the mirror to avoid direct eye contact, he sprinted between columns, forcing the basilisk to chase him while Theo pulled Ginny away from the diary. The diary is the anchor. Harry shouted to Theo. Destroy it to defeat Riddle. Theo grabbed the diary, but Riddle was faster, disarming him with a wand he'd somehow acquired. Harry recognized it as Ginny's. Ingenious deduction, Riddle acknowledged. But too late. I've absorbed enough of Ginny's life force to take physical form. Once you're dead, I'll be fully restored. The basilisk closed in on Harry, who found himself cornered. In desperation, he remembered Ragnarok's words, in impossible situations, change the nature of the engagement. Instead of continuing to flee, Harry charged directly toward the basilisk, confusing it momentarily. As its massive head dipped to strike, he slid beneath its jaw and drove his goblin-forged dagger upward, not a killing blow, but a disabling one to the soft tissue under the jaw. The basilisk reared back in pain, exposing its throat further. Harry launched himself upward, driving the dagger deeper while keeping his eyes averted from its deadly gaze. Black blood showered him as the blade penetrated a vital point, sending the creature into spasms. Impressive combat skills, Riddle acknowledged as the basilisk thrashed its last. But ultimately futile. I'm nearly corporeal now, and without the diary's destruction, I remain. Harry, bleeding and exhausted, faced Riddle across the chamber. Theo lay unconscious where Riddle had struck him, and Ginny was barely breathing. The diary remained on the floor between them. "You think like a wizard," Harry said, buying time while calculating options. "Always focused on magical solutions." "Because magic is power," Riddle replied. "Something a goblin-raised half-blood could never truly understand." Harry smiled grimly. "Goblins understand something more fundamental. Everything has a price." Before Riddle could react, Harry lunged forward and grabbed the diary. Drawing on goblin blood magic, the most ancient and taboo form of goblin sorcery, taught only to clan heirs for emergency situations, he pressed his bleeding hand against the diary's cover and spoke in gobbledygook. "Blood calls to blood, life demands life. I offer sacrifice for containment." The goblin spell wasn't meant to destroy a Horcrux, just neutralize it temporarily, but combined with Harry's willing blood sacrifice and his unique connection to Voldemort, it created an unexpected reaction. The diary began smoking where his blood touched it, acid-like holes appearing in its cover. Riddle screamed, his form flickering. "What is this magic?" "Goblin blood binding," Harry gasped, the spell draining his strength dangerously. "Your soul fragment against my freely given blood. An exchange." The diary continued deteriorating, and with it, Riddle's form began to dissolve. In desperation, he pointed Ginny's wand at Harry. Avada Kedavra. The killing curse fizzled weakly. Riddle hadn't absorbed enough energy yet to cast it properly. The failed spell accelerated his dissolution, and with a final scream, he vanished entirely as the diary crumbled to ash. Harry collapsed beside Ginny, who began stirring as Riddle's drain on her life force ended. Theo regained consciousness as well, staring at the basilisk corpse and the ashen remains of the diary. "Bloody hell, Potter," he wheezed. "Is this how all your school years will go?" Harry managed a weak laugh. Strategic unpredictability keeps allies and enemies guessing. Ginny's eyes fluttered open, filling with tears as she registered where she was. "Harry." "What?" "The diary." "Tom." "I tried to tell someone, but he wouldn't let me." "It's over," Harry assured her. "The diary is destroyed." "But I helped him," she sobbed. "I opened the chamber. I set the basilisk on people. I'll be expelled." "You were possessed by a memory of Lord Voldemort," Harry stated factually. "Sophisticated dark magic beyond any first-year's ability to resist. Goblin law recognizes clear distinction between willing and coerced action." Theo helped Harry to his feet. "We should get out of here before something else tries to kill us." With Ginny supported between them, they made their way back through the chamber. The route out presented a challenge until Harry called Fawkes, Dumbledore's phoenix, using a special summoning whistle Ragnarok had provided, for emergencies only. The magical bird appeared in a flash of fire and transported them to Dumbledore's office. There they found not only the headmaster but Professor McGonagall, Snape, and two distraught Weasley parents. The basilisk Fong Harry had collected as evidence and the ashen diary remains prompted a lengthy explanation of everything that had occurred. "Blood magic, Potter?" Snape finally asked, eyebrow raised. "Rather dark for a second year." "Goblin clan blood binding," Harry corrected. "Different magical classification entirely." "Indeed," Dumbledore interjected, eyes twinkling despite the gravity of the situation. "The Goblin nation operates under distinct magical traditions recognized by treaty, if rarely witnessed by wizards." The conversation that followed covered multiple aspects of the chamber incident: Lucius Malfoy's role in planting the diary, the Ministry's failure to detect such a dangerous artifact, the basilisk's confirmed existence after centuries of dismissal as legend. "What I find most remarkable," Dumbledore observed to Harry later, after the others had departed, "is your willingness to risk yourself for Miss Weasley despite having limited personal connection to her." Harry considered this. She was an innocent caught in political manipulation. Goblin ethics prioritize justice in such cases. "Just Goblin ethics?" Dumbledore asked gently. "And human compassion," Harry admitted. "The integration isn't always seamless, but I'm finding balance." Dumbledore nodded. That balance may prove crucial in days to come. Lord Voldemort has now twice faced unexpected opposition from you, once as his current self, and now as his younger memory. He'll continue seeking restoration, Harry predicted. The diary suggests multiple contingencies exist. I fear you're right, Dumbledore sighed. But that is tomorrow's battle. For now, rest and recovery are in order. The revelation of Lucius Malfoy's involvement in the chamber plot created immediate repercussions. The school governors removed him from their board, and the ministry launched an investigation into the diary's origins. Draco's position in Slytherin weakened considerably, while Harry's unusual allies, including Theo, who was now recognized for his role in the chamber, gained prominence. Most significantly for Harry, his status evolved from the boy who lived, oddly raised by goblins, to something more complex and respected. The wizarding world began to see his goblin upbringing not as a curiosity but as a source of unique capabilities that had proven crucial in defeating the basilisk. The last week of term brought unexpected validation from Professor Snape, who summoned Harry to his office. Your actions were reckless, impulsive, and bypassed all proper authority, Snape began harshly. Yes, sir. They were also. Snape seemed to struggle with the words, effective. Your goblin training provided solutions unavailable to conventional wizard education. Harry remained silent, recognizing the difficult admission for what it was. Professor Dumbledore has requested I continue supplementing your education next year with advanced potions study, Snape continued. I have agreed, provided you maintain acceptable standards of caution going forward. Thank you, Professor. I appreciate the opportunity. Snape's lip curled slightly. Don't mistake this for sentiment, Potter. Practical evaluation indicates your unusual background creates tactical advantages worth developing. Harry nodded, recognizing the statement as near praise from the taciturn professor. The end-of-year feast celebrated Slytherin winning the House Cup, largely due to the unprecedented points awarded to Harry and Theo for their chamber heroics. As they ate, Theo leaned over to Harry. I've been corresponding with my father about goblin investment strategies, he said casually. He's interested in diversifying beyond wizard-controlled assets. Harry understood the significance immediately. The Knotts were an old pure-blood family. Their willingness to consider goblin financial services represented a shift in traditional wizard thinking. I could arrange a consultation with Director Ragnarok's team, Harry offered. I'd appreciate that. Theo hesitated. My father also mentioned summer visiting arrangements might be possible. If you wanted to see a traditional wizard household. The invitation marked another breakthrough, a pure-blood Slytherin family offering to host the goblin-raised boy who lived. I'd like that, Harry replied sincerely. Though I'll need to coordinate with my security protocols. Theodore grinned. Naturally. Wouldn't want to upset the Goblin Nation by misplacing their heir. On the Hogwarts Express home, Harry's compartment once again hosted his interhouse study group, now expanded to include Ginny Weasley, still recovering but determined to move forward, and Luna Lovegood, an unusual Ravenclaw first-year who claimed Harry's aura showed fascinating goblin influence patterns. As King's Cross approached, Hermione turned to Harry. What do you think Voldemort will try next? The diary can't have been his only plan. It wasn't, Harry confirmed. Goblin intelligence suggests multiple contingencies. The pattern indicates escalation. Cheerful thought for summer holidays, Ron muttered. Strategic awareness isn't pessimism, Harry replied. It's preparation. Will you be allowed to visit this summer? Hermione asked. My parents said they'd be happy to have you stay. I have training obligations with the clan, Harry explained. But I've negotiated limited social integration periods. Director Ragnarok sees the value in maintaining diverse alliances. As the train pulled into the station, Harry gathered his belongings, including the basilisk fawn, properly contained in a goblin-warded case, and several books on advanced defensive magic. Griphook waited on the platform with the usual security detail, but Harry noticed a subtle difference in their positioning. less protective encirclement, more respectful escort formation. His status within the Goblin hierarchy had evolved. Successful year? Griphook asked as they walked toward the Goblin apparition point. Productive, Harry confirmed, switching to gobbledygook. Basilisk Corpse recovery team dispatched. Already securing valuable components, Griphook replied in the same language. Director Ragnarok expects full harvesting within a week. Estimated value, 17 million galleons. Harry nodded, pleased. The basilisk's remains, skin, venom, organs, and bones, represented a significant windfall for both Harry personally, as the creature's slayer under magical law, and the Goblin nation, as contracted harvesters. The financial implications would strengthen his position further. I faced a fragment of Voldemort again, Harry said more quietly. The pattern is clear now. He's scattered pieces of himself as insurance against death. Director Ragnarok's analysts have reached similar conclusions, Griphook confirmed. Your status becomes increasingly significant. Before departing the platform, Harry turned back for a final glance at his friends, Wizard and Witch students from various houses, waving goodbye until September. 2 years ago, they'd been strangers from an alien culture. Now they were allies, even friends. You're developing attachment to them, Griphook observed neutrally. Strategic relationships evolve, Harry replied with the formal Goblin phrase. Indeed. Griphook's expression softened almost imperceptibly. But there's no shame in calling them friends, Harry. Even goblins understand friendship, though we express it differently. As they disapparated back to the Goblin nation, Harry reflected on his unique position. Not fully goblin despite his upbringing, not typical wizard despite his birth. Yet increasingly, that dual perspective felt like strength rather than limitation, a bridge between worlds that needed connection more than ever with Voldemort's return looming. That night, reporting formally to Ragnarok, Harry concluded, the chamber crisis revealed increasing wizard recognition of goblin magical approaches. Several pureblood families have expressed interest in financial consultations, and Professor Dumbledore has requested formal academic exchange programs. Ragnarok nodded approvingly. The seeds we planted with your adoption bear unexpected fruit. You have become a true bridge builder, my son. Not what you originally intended when adopting me? Harry asked perceptively. Politics alone would have recommended returning you to the wizards once you proved useful, Ragnarok admitted. But you earned your place as clan heir through merit, not calculation. The Goblin director did something unprecedented then, he smiled openly, without the usual restraint. Besides, your basilisk slaying has made you a legend among the younger goblins. Songs are already being composed about Harry Silverblade, Serpent's Bane. Harry groaned. Please tell me there's no public performance requirement. Of course there is, Ragnarok's sharp teeth gleamed. Full ceremonial attendance. Goblin tradition demands proper recognition of legendary deeds. As Harry prepared for bed later, he found himself humming one of the Goblin victory songs he'd learned years ago. For the first time, he felt he truly deserved its lyrics about honor earned through courage. Not because he was the boy who lived, a title based on his mother's sacrifice rather than his own actions, but because he had faced challenges with both goblin cunning and human compassion. He was Harry Silverblade Potter, heir to 2 worlds and bound by blood to both. Whatever challenges Voldemort would bring next, Harry would face them with the combined strengths of his unique heritage, and the growing circle of allies who accepted him as he was. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.